folks. Today we're talking about So What? Improvisation. You may have seen my video over the weekend, just released this past Saturday. So What? The melody video. So now let's talk a bit about improvisation on the tune. Last week we talked about tonal versus modal music on the podcast. So today we're focusing in on modal music. This would be a modal type tune. So rather than working with functional type harmony, we're working with kind of like mood and color and a palette of tones. Our form is separated between two sections of D minor 7, and one section of E flat minor, and then back to one section of D minor 7. So when improvising on this tune, it's a really fun way of working at developing melodic ideas and kind of getting to stretch out over time on one chord sound. So we're working with D Dorian and E flat Dorian. And Dorian has a flat 3 and a flat 7. And it's one of 3 modes of the major scale. When we work with E flat, it's really the same thing, E flat Dorian, but we're shifting up 1/2 step. Now, when we work on improvisation with this, we want to have an understanding of what is consonant and dissonant in this sound. So you might say we have chord tones and non-chord tones, or chord tones, and you might say color tones, excuse me. So if we took a D minor 7 and play the chord tones, those would be the root, flat 3rd, 5th, and flat 7 of the Dorian. Notice we're kind of going every other note inside that mode until we get to 4 notes. Now our tensions, or the non-chord tones, we have E, G, and B. So that's the 9, the 11, and the 13, or you might say 2, 4, and 6 related to the chord. So those tones are going to be a little bit outside. So we want to train our ear to hear the impact of these 7 notes when we play them on the chord itself. So the root, flat 3, 5th, and flat 7 are going to be fairly consonant, but they all also have their own individual sound on the chord. And then in general, like I said, the E minor triad, 2, 4, and 6 are going to have more of a dissonant sound. So I know folks are at a variety of different levels with their playing, but essentially, if you find that you're playing a group of notes and working with a pattern, let's say one of the 5 fingerings, try to get to understand these 2 groups, the minor 7 arpeggio and the E minor triad arpeggio, and understand if you're on one of those 2, and then when you go to play over the tune, listen for those tensions and those chord tones. So you may have heard me playing a little bit earlier, and I'm taking, a phrase or 2 or 3, and I'm landing on, as an ending tone, some of those tensions. So I might have this chord D minor 7, and I may play a melodic idea and then end as my final note on one of those tensions, like E here, right? So when you go to play that, right, it's going to have a slight tension on the sound. And you can do that to regulate how much tension you're getting and how much release. And then if you land on a root or a fifth, if you finish your phrase there, it feels fairly resolved. So you're just kind of working in this palette of tones and making decisions on what's consonant, what's dissonant. And you can even weave back and forth. So some elements in there, I might break up a E minor triad and then move into a few notes of the D minor 7 as well. So that would be an E minor triad and an F major triad as an example. But you can just kind of weave back and forth between consonants and dissonances and varied amounts of each one. Something like a C major triad is going to sit somewhere in between, right? Because we have C, which is going to be a chord tone, then the E and the G, right? Right, so you could play that triad. Or you could play a C major 7 over the D minor for a little bit of tension, but it would still include one of the chord tones. So how you approach a modal tune when improvising will be a bit different than how you might approach a tonal tune. Or a tonal tune, you're working with changes, working with the ability to kind of agree or spell out the changes in your lines and navigate that. Whereas on modal jazz or a modal tune, you're going to have a lot of time to explore and stretch out on these tones. So we have this natural sixth included, and that's a characteristic sound of the Dorian in minor. So try incorporating that tone and getting a sense for the impact that particular tone has on the sound. All right, and then be sure to make that half step shift, which is just going to move all of these tones up a half step and play through that, and then we shift back. It's a really nice, cool effect. So for practice, work on visualizing where the D minor 7 is and see if you can play that, if you know your inversions. If not, I would work on those around the neck and different string sets. And then understand those 5 fingerings with the specifics of how those notes connect. And I've made a free PDF for you to download on this, which shows those chord scales. It's just a 2-page PDF with reference shapes on those 5 fingerings. And you've got the chord tones in orange, and you've got the non-chord tones in kind of a transparent blue. So check for the link down in the description. So chord scales are really important to understand. You want to work at that depth so you're not totally reliant on licks and patterns. So you can really create from your own taste and what you like. So practice vamping on the D minor 7 and the E flat minor 7. Maybe do a little bit of a loop on each of those and get comfortable with each. Once you're feeling pretty good on these, work on creating little segments of ideas, right? So maybe a little rhythmic idea. And repeat it, maybe develop it, or just a contour of tones like I'm doing here. Right, and you can develop that. Ways to make it kind of interesting, because you are sitting on the same sound for quite a while. And then, try working with something simple, a really simple, maybe elegant idea, and then develop it, expand on it, repeat it. That's also a way that you can keep things interesting as you're working through this. and leave room, because in a sense, we're not having to be particularly agile when going through the changes. There's that temptation, to run your fingers really, really fast around the neck, and that's fine to do. But give it a little space, a little open moment, phrases, a couple beats of rest, and more ideas. And of course, keep track of the form so that you're making that change, the AA, BA form on the 2 chords. All right, I'd like to remind my listeners that in addition to this audio version of the podcast, we have a video version available to members of the YouTube member area, Substack subscriber, paid subscribers, and our website members at fretprince.com. But if you're wanting to watch this particular video, check the link down in the description, and by joining our email list, you can watch the video. It's a very easy process there. All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed this talk this weekend. I'm going to release I believe if everything goes to plan, I'm going to release Impressions, which is based on the same chord progression, but this is a melody by John Coltrane. Quite a few guitarists have covered this tune, so I hope you look forward to hearing that as well, coming out this Saturday. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. All right, everyone, have a great practice session, and I'll see you all in the next one.